It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
You know, folks, since 1994, I've tried to bring a lot of important information to the greater northeastern Pennsylvania area. One of the things that I try to do is always bring facts to you, and sometimes I am a little opinionated, there's no question about it, but I always open up that other side, particularly with, like, for example, pro-life or pro-choice, etc. I open the other side up. The most important thing, I think, folks, and I appreciate the number of emails I get, and I'm not here being braggadocious by no means, because that's a lot of nonsense when I hear these people telling how great they are. The point is, I like to bring only facts to you. Sometimes facts are ugly things. Today, this is a very serious show. And I know the politicians who are running for office are going to be watching this show, and some will appreciate them, some will not. I don't care. The point is, we have to be concerned about what's happening in our town. We've had on the show a number of times our chief of police, Frank DeAndrea. I know Frank many, many years. However, that doesn't make any difference. He still has to do his job. One of the things that have been a serious problem, and I'll address some letters to you a little later on in the show, is the fact that he's been crying for 4 years that we need more cops. Yes, I will address the fact that there was $100,000 in there for part-time policemen, but the fact is, I'm going to ask the chief today, why, number one, will part-time officers will not work in the city of Hazleton? Let me re-say that. Why will part-time officers not work in the city of Hazleton? The first question I want to ask you, Chief, is this. Does any other city in the state of Pennsylvania, our size, have part-time officers?
None that I am aware of.
Okay, that's number one. All right, now, will you explain to our viewers, why is it that you say part-time officers will not work?
Let me start by saying, first of all, thank you for having me on the show to once again be able to get this word out. And I need to be clear that eventually part-time officers would be a great asset to the city of Hazleton. But they will not be a great asset to the city of Hazleton until such time that we have enough full-time cops to combat the full-time crime problem. Here are, quickly, reasons why part-time officers cannot work in the city of Hazleton. First of all, I am governed, and the city is governed by the Hazleton Civil Service Rules for police. The civil service rules do not differentiate between part-time and full-time. So the only way to hire any officer, be them part-time or full-time, is off the civil service list. In the last 3 years, I have exhausted the civil service list every time simply by hiring the full-time officers. I hired 2 females and it closed the 2014 list. I have just hired 4 full-time officers and it closed the 2015 list again. I have no list to hire part-timers off. I must have their names on a list before I can do that. Secondly, there will be no savings to the city for hiring part-time officers. I can't hire them for $8 an hour. They must, according to the collective bargaining agreement that is in place right now, a part-time officer is not differentiated. So therefore, they will get all of the exact same benefits of a full-time officer, except for retirement. That being the case, they're paid the same wage, they're given the same amount of paid sick days, paid holidays, paid vacation days, they get the same shift schedules. There is no benefit. I can't pay them $8 an hour. They've got to get paid the same rate. Third, the money that City Council found is gone in the end of December. It was given to me, and it's not this constant thing. It is a one-time windfall, and it's the surplus from the 2014 budget. That's where the money came from. At the end of 2015, even if I hired 1 full-time officer, I would hire them and have to lay them off, explaining there's no money left for you next year. The fifth thing, the availability to investigate crime. The fact of the matter is, If I send a part-time officer to your house because your wife's grandmother's heirloom jewelry was stolen, and Monday morning at 7 a.m. that police officer shows up, Hazleton officer part-time, and they show up and you're happy because you finally calmed your wife down and you get them to do a great report and they're a great officer. And they say to you, Mr. Lesante, when I come back to work next Thursday, I will start to interview some of the neighbors and go to some of the pawn shops. And you're outraged again and your wife starts to cry again because you realize even if the pawn shops follow the law, the gold is going to be melted down before this cop comes back to work. But he looks at you and says, I'm a part-time officer. I've worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week, and now I don't work again until Thursday, Friday, and Saturday next week. So now the public is outraged, and the public looks at that and says, well, I'm only calling when a full-time officer is working. So they listen to the scanner, and they're waiting to hear who's working before they call for officers. What that does is it overworks the full-time officers, because now the supervisor is saying, I can't send the part-time. I got 3 officers working, 1 full-timer, 2 part-timers. I can't send the part-time officer to that serious traffic investigation. Somebody might die. Part-timer, you can't take it. Full-time officer, you go take it. Oh, I can't send the part-time officer to the sexual assault. I can't send the part-time officer to the rape. I can't send the part-time officer, can't. Before you know it, you are overworking the full-time officers. And what that does is not only does it fatigue them, but now my overtime goes through the roof, because the full-time officers are catching all of the serious incidents. They're staying all over all of the shifts being held over. They're transporting prisoners. They're preparing charges. They're going to work, to court on their days off. They finally get fatigued and they start to call in sick. When they call in sick because they are sick, they can't be worked anymore. They're working 16, 18 hours a day. What ends up happening then is I have to pay overtime for another full-time officer to staff that, simply because the part-time officers couldn't take the incidents. I go to the total amount of hours worked in a week. A part-time officer can only work no more than 29 hours a week. Otherwise, by law, they become full-time. Well, that means that I'll be lucky to get 2.5 shifts out of them. 8, 16, and 4 more is 20 hours, because I've got to leave a grace period there because I know that those part-timers are going to be required to go to court. And they're going to have to work overtime if they got a prisoner and they had to transport them or to prepare the charges. So they're going to work 2.5 shifts a week maximum. That means that when they work 2.5 shifts a week, if the training that I normally give my full-time officers is 4 to 6 months to become a full-time police officer in the city of Hazleton, you're trained for 5 months. If you're working 5 days a week, you're trained for 5 months. If you're working half of that, it's going to take me twice as long to train you. So you're not going to be trained for 10 months, almost a year. And that's without any problem or me saying you need a little bit of extra work. So I'm going to train everybody, and then I'm out of money. So I've just thrown the city's $100,000 away. I've trained these officers, and they're proud because it's a resume builder. They're going to get to go to any other municipality, and the municipality is going to look and say, oh, you were trained in Hazleton, you're a cop in Hazleton, we want you. So I become a revolving door. I train them, they get a full-time job somewhere else. I cannot discipline part-time officers. How do you discipline somebody? What are you going to do, give them a day off? They're not coming to work for 7 or 8 days in a row. So what happens is I'm putting them out there. They're able to not do the justice to the community. They're not treating the people correctly. They're not doing their reports on time. They're not doing what they're told. I can't give them a day off. It becomes a scheduling nightmare for me. This is number 10, scheduling nightmare. The reason why it's a scheduling nightmare is because I have the schedule done months in advance, and now I say, okay, you're part-time officer, you're supposed to work on Monday. Well, Monday, about a half hour before your 3 to 11 shift starts, you call and you say, I hate to do this to you, but my full-time job called and I caught an overtime shift. And I could make $600 working overtime on that shift, so I can't come in. Now, I've got to call a full-time officer in on overtime because you decided to call off and go to a different job. And I can't discipline you. There's no possible way. The bigger thing, or the most important thing, then becomes, not only is it a scheduling nightmare and is discipline an issue, the liability for the city is incredible, because I already know those part-time officers are working 2 and 3 other jobs. They usually work 8 hours, they run to the next job, work 8 hours, they run to the next job. There are times they've worked 24 hours in a row. How do I ignore that when they're involved in an incident and either they get hurt or killed, or equally as bad, they hurt or kill someone else in the public because they fell asleep behind the wheel, because somebody was involved in a shooting and they didn't see what was happening and they end up getting shot or stabbed and now their wife is suing the city. I can't ignore the liability. So I've just given you 12 reasons, and those 12 reasons have not even addressed the fact that City Council is going to have to renegotiate the current collective bargaining agreement, and that's going to take months to reopen a contract and thousands of dollars, and at the end of the year the money's gone. Those are quickly 12 reasons why right now part-time officers will not work in the city of Hazleton.
My question to you, Chief, is this. I'm a talk show host, try to bring vehicles of knowledge to people. I said in the beginning, I try to present facts, okay? Have you, what you've just said here, okay, have you been able to sit down with City Council, all of them, and explain to them exactly what you're saying to me?
Ironically enough, although there was a letter sent to the mayor from City Council demanding part-time cops, and it was also sent to the...
You mean a letter sent to them, which I'll address.
Council has never sat down with me and asked me how I can best serve the city and what they could do to help the police department with staffing. I repeat the word, never.
So here again, I'm not a councilman or councilwoman, and I'm sure they have a lot on their plate. The most important thing about our city is the fact that we need protection, and we've seen the increase not only here in crime but across the country. And we're trying to invite people to come into our area in Hazleton. Can Do is trying to bring businesses here. We have people who are renting here. So I would think, whatever reason, council did not find to sit down with their chief of police so you can explain to them, because that's what we're paying you for. I just wonder, folks, if the political thing comes, is the politics being played. We are suffering so much in this country because of nonsense of politicians not wanting to do what is right. Now, this is Frank DeAndrea's opinion. We come back, we have a couple letters that were sent. One letter was sent to city council members, and then it was responded to by the current president, Jack Mundy, who is president of city council. You remember I said, folks, about accountability? We all have to be accountable. Election time's coming, and I'm not promoting anyone. All I'm going to do is bring these people on to present facts. Chief of Police DeAndrea has presented this a number of times on our show. However, a letter was sent to Mayor Yunuzzi by Mr. Mundy, and I'll take some of these things. It wasn't sent to us. It was sent to the Standard Speaker and the Times Leader. I would really appreciate, Mr. Mundy, if you have any news releases like this or letters, send them to SSP TV as WYLN, because we are two local television stations that like to bring information. Yes, they are my competitors, but however, in the same token, we do offer information to the greater Hazleton area, and it's important that we know this stuff. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, 24/7, ssptv.com, and my email is sam@ssptv.com. I want to read an excerpt of a letter from Jason Zola, who is the president of FOP Lodge, number 18. My guest today is Chief Frank DeAndrea. He sent this to the honorable council members, City of Hazleton. Part of the letter, it says, "As I write this letter, I have serious difficulty believing that those of you chosen to ensure that the health, safety, and welfare of our community is protected have not seen or experienced this growth or the efforts made by others to meet the demands that have come with this growth. I also have serious difficulty believing that you do not understand the importance of a properly staffed police force and how it fits into the equation of making Hazleton safe and subsequently productive. Now, Chief DeAndrea presented 12 points as why part-timers will not work in the city of Hazleton, and I asked him, is there any other city of our size that has part-time workers? Okay, now this was dated August 28th. Then Mr. Mundy, who is the president of the city council, sent a letter to Mayor Yanuzzi. I would assume it would be, they received it September 1st. On behalf of city, I am requesting a full and detailed accounting of the current use of our police force manpower. I am interested in the following questions being, what is the number of patrol officers assigned to our streets?
The number of patrol officers assigned to our streets right now is 20.
How many police officers have been placed on assignment with state and federal authorities rather than patrolling our city?
That's a tricky question. The answer is none are on assignment without patrolling the city streets. We have 2 on task forces. One task force is the DEA, which through being on that task force, the city police department gets hundreds of thousands of dollars in seizure money, which we then can support the police department to buy the things that we need. The what I'll call the frivolous things such as tasers, ammunition, radios. We don't spend them on anything silly, and I'm being sarcastic with frivolous. We're augmenting a budget that is non-existent in some of these line items, such as communications. The other individual is on the State Police Auto Theft Task Force. The state police pays 100% of that detective's salary, his vehicle, his benefits, his gasoline, and his overtime. So he is actually a free officer for the city. If we had to bring him back and put him in patrol, we would lose 2, if not 3, of the lowest members on patrol right now because of the salary difference.
What are the number of police officers currently assigned to duties which keep them in a support role to boots on the streets?
That's an upsetting question because it makes it sound like I have a cast of thousands that don't assist the city. Again, other than me, who is in a 100% administrative role, although I also work midnight shifts and PM shifts, and not taking incidents, but just to be an extra person. I have one first lieutenant who's the administrative lieutenant, who incidentally was one of the people involved in capturing the armed robber. He writes as many, if not more, tickets and does as many shifts of overtime as anyone else. And I have an evidence technician who is also the fingerprint technician who transports all of the evidence to and from the lab, processes most of the 500 arrests a year that we have, and works overtime shifts and patrol. So none. I have no staff.
Another question Mr. Mundy asked the mayor, what is the amount of money paid for police overtime up to the present time?
Again, when I read that, it makes it sound like city council is not shared with what we do with the overtime. When I became chief, I took over a department and I thought there needs to be some changes. Not because the department isn't staffed with professional individuals, but because we needed to better adjust how we were doing things. One of the things I did, as you can see right here, is I demand if any of my officers work more than 15 minutes of overtime, they must type a letter. And when they type a letter of explanation, in the letter they have to sign it, and then the shift supervisor, not of their shift, but of the shift they went to overtime, has to then approve it. So along with this recapitulation, or me keeping track of the overtime, the fact is in 3 years, I have been under budget in every line item every year. I have also increased revenue from the police department. So when someone asks for my overtime, once a month, City Administrator Prabula forwards to City Council a true and accurate year-to-date accounting of the entire budget. In that is the police department's. But with that, when I look, because this makes it sound like I don't keep track of my overtime, I would like to quickly share with you last week's overtime. Search warrant, homicide, suspicious death, rape investigation, crime scene security for a homicide, mandated because there's not enough officers working a shift, homicide PSP security up at the castle, armed robbery in progress, homicide, mandated to stay for a shift, another mandated to stay for a shift, mandated to stay for a shift, mandated to stay for a shift, overtime staffing issue, homicide investigation, sexual assault, aggravated assault, stolen vehicle, shooting. If you could find 15 minutes of overtime in this stack that were because they were lazy and didn't do something, I would pay you double. But the fact is, our overtime is extremely calculated, and there is not a nickel of overtime that this police department pays. We're paying overtime right now because we have officers that are fatigued, they have to call in sick, and that forces me to drop below minimum staffing, and I have to keep somebody. I am forcing you, come into work day shift. You think you're going home at 3 p.m.? And now I'm telling you, you get to work an extra 8 hours because nobody else is coming into work the next shift.
Does Mr. Mundy, as the president of City Council, get a report from the mayor or from whoever, so he could look at the police department and decide at that particular point in time, because he does accounting, and determine whether there was overtime or not when he gets that report?
Every month he's given the year the up to date to the day.
So he would know whether there is where the overtime, how much the overtime is?
Correct.
All right, so if I would have a question with that as a city council president, and I think that the overtime is too much, I'd be calling you in and asking you, where did this overtime go? Now, you're explaining to Sam Lesante all this stuff here. Can any councilman see this?
Anyone can come to my office. The thing is that is never done. Or let me rephrase that. That was not done. Instead, the letter is sent to the mayor and the media.
It seems that, the letter sent by, to the mayor and also to the both newspapers, Times Leader and our partners, Standing Speaker, it's questioning that. My question would be, and I'll ask Jack this question when he comes on my show, if we don't get into a spinning situation with him, why would you send a letter and put it public as if to present that you do not know what's going on with part-time? I think that would be an insult to you, or to Frank.
It's appalling that I look at that, and it makes it sound, if you only read that letter, it makes it sound as if the police department and the mayor or city administration does not share the budget or what is going on with the money with city council.
Well, here again, it says city council demands that this is to the mayor, the city council demands that you follow the budget and immediately move towards hiring these part-time officers. Your failure to act has placed our full-time officers and the citizens of Hazleton at risk.
That is one of the most upsetting things in the letter. First of all, when the money went into the line item for uniform police salaries, the fact is that legally, council cannot direct me how to spend it. But I'm not going to thumb my nose at them and do something that wasn't their desires, because they put that money in there for part-timers. But at the end of the day, what I truly refuse to do is waste the city's money just to be able to say, I told you so. There is no way to use that money for part-time officers, even if I had officers' names on a list to hire. It will not work for the city right now. And therefore, I would rather not spend the money on any kind of officers than to just waste it.
Without being political, okay, and believe me, I know Jack very well. We've had many breakfasts together. He's a good person. I just feel that when you cannot communicate, why does Frank DeAndrea have to come on the Sam Lesante show to explain why we shouldn't have part-time officers? Why, do we have to communicate to the press? I know it's an election year, but these are the things that, we all pay the price for. All the citizens of Hazleton's paying the price for. And, we had a great fun fest. We had a lot of people here. I've seen you, seen the cops, and it was a refreshing thing to see downtown alive again, Frank.
Absolutely.
We saw a mixture of all people here. And your cops are out there, looking. I mean, certainly there's crime, but how do we take the personal agendas of people who are in office today and say, look, let's work for the betterment? Now speaking, I hope to leave on a positive note here today. Do we have a solution to put more cops on the streets?
Absolutely.
We'll be back right after this. Thank you for staying with us, folks. I'm Sam Lesante. My guest today is our Chief of Police, Frank DeAndrea. We're talking about part-time officers. Okay, Frank, we talked about why part-time officers will not work. No other city in the state of Pennsylvania this size has part-time officers. Okay, what's the solution?
The solution is simple. It's not easy. The fact is, as City Council, you are the parents of this city. And so when I dumb this down, I dumb it down to being a parent. When your kids are sick, as the city is sick, you don't ask them if they want to get better. You get them the medicine to make them better. The city is sick. We're the parents of the city. We can't ask our kids, the citizens, do you want to get better? We've got to play the parent. Forget about being the friend. Oh, do you want a needle? Do you want to take your medicine? Give them the middle. Give them the needle. Make them take the medicine. The fact is that medicine is a tax. And I know that hurts, and I'm using the ugly T word. But forgive me. Here's how it works, very quickly. You implement the tax that was supposed to be the referendum that now we could hide behind saying, oh, it didn't make it on the ballot. Sorry, we'll never know. We don't need to know. We already know the city needs more full-time cops. End of story. There's nothing else to ask. Fix that problem. Implement the tax immediately. Get that $1 million, hire 10 more officers. In the meantime, you tell the city there will be no more next year tax for that. We have 1 year to come up with the second part of the plan. The second part is the rental tax. We implement that and we bring the extra $1.5 million in. In the meantime, while that is being kicked off, where that gets the next 10 cops, so now you're up to 20 cops and 6 code enforcement officers and a clerk. And while you do that, you then turn around and say, now, let's have the think tank. Let's bring all of these geniuses from all of these industrial parks, these multi-billion-dollar industries, and the ones that we have right here in the city of Hazleton. You bring DBI, Hayden, you bring anybody that is smart with thinking on a business structure, and you say to them, let's sit down and let's figure out how do we boost the tax base. And what we do is we come up with maybe leasing the water authority. Don't sell your only asset, as you saw from Congressman Barletta mention. Maybe we put the solar energy plant at the airport that we own, because that could bring us hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra revenue, and the city won't pay electrical bills. And then what we do is we get that $1 million and we stop the first tax. So the people only paid that $1 million tax for 1 year to get us started. And when we do that, we now say, now we have the rental registration tax, there's 10 cops, and we've replaced the original tax with the new one, there's 20 cops, and the people aren't paying for it anymore with that initial tax. That would be what I do. I call on all of these, and I call them, they're geniuses in business, they're right here. We have more degrees than a thermometer in these people with their education. We go to the hospitals and the school districts and we say, come help us survive. We can do this.
Frank, I'm sorry we have to cut you short, but certainly this should have been an hour show. Thanks for coming on the show.
Could I please end with one thing?
Yes.
In all my career, I have received hundreds of awards and accolades. The biggest award that I have is being the Chief of Police for the City of Hazleton. And I have never been more proud than I could be of the men and women from that police department who every day give their all. Thank you.
Folks, you saw the reports that they have, and these cops that are working like crazy. Believe me, hats off to anyone who puts a uniform on. I said that many times. I try to present the facts. We're going to have the chief, fire chief, maybe head of the street department. I'd like to bring Jeff Cassat and Jack Mundy on and have a discussion here, a civil discussion before the election, so you know what's happening. We'll see you next time.